Alright, how's it going? Doing the thing again. Gonna start sanding. It's gonna be a little bit of a jump between last video and this video. I got a bunch done last video. I didn't make a video, but that video I did some weird stuff and I deleted the saved videos before I exported the whole video, and it lost all the data because that's what it does apparently. So I'm learning. But yeah, this app that I'm using, obviously those videos need to be in the phone before you export the video, because if you export the video and the source videos are not there, it can't export anything. Go me, huh? But yeah, so what I did in the last video, which you guys will never see, is I stripped the chassis down. The only thing left to do on the rear of the chassis is the brake line. But I sprayed that a couple times with PB Blaster, get that all good to go and come apart. So I'll pop that off before I start sanding everything. And then I took the e-brake cables off. Those weren't too terrible. There is like a midpoint underneath the cab to disconnect those. Yeah, so it's that little mechanism right there. So you just pull it out through there. You have to actually loosen it up, tilt it, and then pull it out through there because it like locks in there. Yeah, and then I also disconnected the rest of the wiring harness from the chassis. And the e-brake cables, they go through those holes on the rear cab mount, as well as going through the hole on the hanger, the front hanger of the leaf spring. So I got those all pulled out, because otherwise when I'm sandblasting it, I'm not going to be able to get around all them wires, because they run through there, back through there, and then through this hole right there, and then the other holes on the side that I just showed you. So I figured I'd take those off. That way when I'm sandblasting it, I can get those areas nice and easy with those out of the way. Yeah, and then I also have the leaf springs disconnected. I just have the bolts in there right now. So when I do take it off, that I just pop the leaf springs out, throw it on the jack stand and roll it away, and you can start sandblasting. I'm not going to sandblast the whole chassis. I'm going to do most of it by hand. The only place I'm going to really sandblast is like these hard to reach areas. This isn't a good example because I'm going to cut that off. Because I did make the decision yesterday to go with, I'm going to relocate my shocks behind the rear axle. So I actually did order my steel from the street rod shop I used to work at. So I ordered that, and that's ready to be picked up. It's the C-notch I was talking about, that 1 3/8 tube. So I'm going to put that back there for my shocks. So I'm going to relocate all my shock mounts, because this one's in the front, that one's in the back. So I'm going to just cut this one off and then move that one to the back, and that should be all good. So I'm going to have to cut that off real careful, so that way this shock isn't higher up from lost from the bracket than that one. Or I'll just cut both of them off and redo both of them. We'll see. I'll figure that out when I get that far. But yeah, that 1 3/8 bracket's going to go back here, and then I'm going to attach the shocks to those. And then when I decide to bag the rear for when I'm towing, I'm just going to run like, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but I'll probably just run another 45-degree-inch 1 3/8 tube off of the shock tube, and then mount my bag underneath that on top of the axle. So then that'll be set up real nice for when I'm towing. Not that I wouldn't want a bag truck, because I will have one of those someday, but not this one. This one's mainly just going to be a pretty tow pig, and in my opinion. And then this back section, this is all going to go away. That's all going to go away. And then I'm just getting my, what was that? That 2x4 back there for my trailer hitch. So that's going to be back there, and I'm boxing all that in. So yeah, I got all that steel, and I'm good to go with that. So that'll probably be in next week's video. So we'll get that going. And then I don't have to sandblast any of this either. I'm just going to leave all that. I'm obviously going to sandblast up to here because I can't cut any of this out until I get those tubes in. Once I get those tubes in, once I get this fully boxed or finished boxed, and get that tube in, then I can cut this out. But until then, that's got to stay in because I can't obviously cut this out. Otherwise, the chassis will, pop in whichever direction. Okay, so let's get sanding. Start knocking this stuff out. Oh, and then by the way, this is my media that I'm going to use. Black Diamond media. I'm pretty sure it equates to 70 grit. And it's two 25-pound bags. But we're not going to get to that today. I'm just going to sand it down with some abrasive wheels. Just some Harbor Freight jobs. Got 2 of those left. And then I got nice 3-inch sanders as well. Got a whole bunch of those in my toolbox. But yeah, those are what I'm going to be using to tackle the chassis. I may get one of my flapper wheels and start doing that as well, because I do have to tackle those guys as well. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I mean, I'm sure it'll go fine. It's not like this is my first rodeo. But yeah, let's get started. See how it goes. And here we are after a little time grinding and using that abrasive wheel. I normally grind when I gotta get the heavy stuff off, and I also tap that heavy stuff with a hammer. I call this super heavy corrosion. Like if you tap around that with the hammer, that'll all lift and pop off, and then it's real easy to sand or grind down that way. Because if you sand or grind down this way, this rust gets like super hot, and then it like not necessarily bonds to the metal, but it like eats up your discs super fast. So that's one trick I've learned with like grinding and cleaning rusty vehicles, is to get rid of this really thick corrosion. Like get that off there, and then you don't go through abrasive wheels or flap discs or grinding discs real quick. But yeah, that's where I got after a little while. Figure you guys give an update, but this will probably be the last part of this video. But when I did grind those off before, in that other section, I ground them down, and I was like, well, I ground them pretty smooth, and I was like, I'm sure those will just pop right out. So took a chisel and tapped them both out after I ground this side down as well. I mean, it doesn't look nice, but it's super smooth. Like if I were to grind all this like black out, like that would be digging into the metal, like the base metal. So you got to leave that. So normally when you're grinding, like you use your hand to kind of feel about what you're doing. Make sure you're not digging into the metal. I mean, all of this is like super smooth. So I got that off, pounded them out with a chisel, and yeah. So I did those two, and then I ground off this one. I left this one in because it's still attached. I mean, it's just a long bar that goes through the chassis, and then they weld it on both sides. And then I also got this one out. Yeah, I just did that one actually. Yeah. But yeah, so got all the big stuff off and chewy chunks and whatnot. And this is what it used to look like. Yeah, that's what it used to look like, and that's what it looks like now. That's what the whole chassis is going to look like. Well, obviously before I sandblast it and then paint it. But, yeah, making good progress. Definitely messy. Definitely messy. But I'll get this other side hammered out, and then I'm going to call it a day. This will be the end of the video. In my next video, I'll start up when I'm sandblasting. So, I'll see you guys then. Later. Well, quick before I go, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I ground this real quick with the flap disc. So this is what I'm talking about. So if I just keep grinding on this, this is what it does. And then it just gets real hot, and then it chews up your flap disc. Whereas if you go tap on it, and then it flakes off, and now underneath that, that's all bare metal, and now all that stuff is gone. Yeah, so see, all that's gone. There's still more right there, but I don't want to keep slamming on the chassis while I'm recording the video, because that stuff's pretty loud. But yeah, I go down to this versus all of this. So that's what I do when I'm working on rusty stuff. I did this on my diesel too, and it turned out excellent. So just my little tip on grinding on rusty chassis or rusty metal in general. I think they actually make a tool for this, but I'm not. I think it just has a bunch of needles, and it's kind of like an air hammer, and it just sits there and hits that and comes off. Does the same thing as this, but I mean, I'm not beating the crap out of it. I'm just tapping it slightly. Might sound like I'm hitting it real hard, but I'm not. But yeah, I figured I'd just show you guys that before I leave real quick. Now this is the end of the video. All right, I'll see you guys later.